Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to build a real-time or next to real-time granular effects device. So first off, we do have granular effects devices, or at least one in Bitwig, which is the pitch shifter. And yeah, it sounds like this. I have a few samples here, a vocal sample, an effect sample, and a drum loop.
On a distant planet.
On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
On
On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
Yeah, I think this little device sounds excellent, but yeah, it has only 3 knobs, so it is fairly limited. We can increase the functionality by concatenating them, putting them in series next to each other, after each other, or next to each other in a group, and apply different pitches, mixes. It's really interesting. But today I want to build one in the grid, which offers us some different possibilities. So let's get one. So, and first we need a delay, and I figured out the all-pass delay works best for this purpose, at least in my opinion. So unfortunately, we will have quite a big delay or latency because we need to fill the buffer with something before we can process it. And also, most third-party VSTs do have to deal with this reality. Yeah, I know some devices that delay the effect for the first bar, and then after they have buffered enough, they then in sync and without latency start playing back the previously recorded loop, which is something I don't know, maybe we could do in here, but it would be a bit more involved. Here we have a delay that reaches from 0 to 1 second. So let's place it fairly squarely in the middle, which is 500 milliseconds. Gain to 0, which means we only have the affected signal and no dry signal. So when I hit play, it will just take half a second until we hear the signal.
On a distant planet.
Okay, so far so good. And what we do here, within these 500 milliseconds, we just fill up a buffer with material. And now we are going to manipulate the timing here, which manipulates the playback speed. So let me grab an LFO. We're going to use it in, well, let me zoom in a little bit. So in this ramp configuration, grab an attenuation knob and a modulation out so that we have influence over the modulation amount. And then here we will apply some modulation, I don't know, 200 millisecond. We'll see how much we need to the delay. And now let's listen to it, what that does. And also before, I want to set this to bipolar, which means we can play the ramp forwards or upwards and downwards. And let me introduce an oscilloscope so that we can look at the signals. Okay, when I go into negative ranges, we have the same going downwards. Okay, let's listen to what it does.
On a distant planet.
On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
On a distant planet.
On a distant planet.
Yeah, if you know granular effects, then you can already hear the similarity. But we have a lot of clicks in here, which, of course, we want to get rid of. So we have to generate some sort of window for our grain where we fade it in and then fade it out towards the end. Or even better, I want something that we can, control and define the shape of the grain exactly the way we want to. And that's quite simple, actually. So we grab a curve LFO, put it on hold. So this is turned off. And just to make sure that it is actually at phase 0, I link it real quick to the playhead as well as this LFO because we're not playing any notes. Hit play and stop, and now these should be synced. Okay. First, reset the curve. Yeah, let's start with, how is this called? The trapezoid shape? I don't know. For the grain, and this is the volume shape we're going to apply. And here, where I don't even know where it is. Let's pick an amplitude modulator. Increase the amplitude, because this is a unipolar signal. With bipolar signals, you would have to place it here, but unipolar signal requires full amplitude. So, and now we're creating a window, actually. Well, not, we first have to connect our LFO. Well, the length of the cycle is the grain length. And so this affects the pitch and now also the amplitude.
On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
On a distant planet.
On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
Yeah, as you can hear, we can even go into reverse direction, or at least the grains are being played backwards. Now, first I want to do something to the LFO because the range, I just like to have more range. And the way this works with this slider here is just not ideal in my opinion. So let's, come on, value, modulator out, and important in between a bend. So, or let's duplicate that. This allows us to control exactly how the modulation signal is being applied. So that you know, and actually you don't need this output. I can directly wire it in, and then I want to change this to kilohertz so that we have a full range LFO. I have to increase the modulation amount, and now let's see. So you can see I have a lot of control. I can, despite it being on kilohertz, it can be very, very slow, and I can go up all the way to 32 kilohertz.
On a distant planet.
On a distant planet. Planet.
On a distant planet.
Planet. On a distant planet.
On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
Yeah, that this is the basic construct, but of course, granular devices. In granular devices, you can often define the number of grains, how many you want. You can spread them out in time, in pitch, and if it's a good device, also in space, meaning left or right. And yes, we can do this as well here. And it is also very simple since the introduction of the stack spread. The only thing we need to do is drop one in here. And of course, we need to increase the number of voices. If I only increase the number of voices, what happens? Or well, actually, no, not the number of voices, the number of stacked voices.
On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
We only need a phase shifter. You can imagine when we increase the voice stacking, we actually do not have one LFO, we have two LFOs, and we have two curves, and we have two amplitude modulators, which are being modulated. And now we shift the oscillation against each other by applying the phase rotation here. Okay. And now I can control the spread with this knob here. Now let's listen.
On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a on a distant planet.
On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
On a distant planet. Distant planet. Distant planet. On a
Distant
planet. On a distant planet.
Yeah, you can hear it sounds totally different. And when we look at the envelope here, we can see how these voices are actually cycling through it. It's actually quite a nice animation. And if they're not nicely spread out or bunched up, then you need to activate this button real quick, sync to global transport.
On a distant.
And stop again, and now they are evenly spread out. Okay, now this becomes really interesting. Yeah, let's increase it, the stack to 16 voices. Why not?
On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
Yeah, maybe because we have so many grains now, it makes sense to narrow the grain shape a little bit. Let's see if that does something good. Something like this.
On a distant planet. 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 On a distant planet.
On a distant planet.
On a distant planet.
Planet.
On a distant planet.
Okay, usually 16 grains are a little bit too much. But it depends a lot on the material. So yeah, and the only thing you need to do is increase the number of grains, the number of voices here, and you get more grains. Now, what else can we do with it? We can, for example, spread them out in the panorama by adding a mixer and apply panning to apply modulation to the panner. But we want to be able to control the intensity, so we need to build a little construct which allows us to do this. So basically, we need a level, then an attenuator, and then a modulation out. And if we hook them up, we can now apply the spread to the level. Or actually, no, I didn't want to use a level. I wanted to use a value, and the value in bipolar mode. Then pull it all, modulation all the way up, and value to 0. So now the pan will also spread into both directions when I apply modulation. Let's apply roughly 100% here.
On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
On a distant
Planet. On a on a distant planet.
On a distant
Planet.
on a distant planet. On a distant planet.
Okay, now it would probably also be interesting if we could affect the pitch of the individual grains. So one way of doing this is, of course, also kind of use the voice stack for it and simply apply some modulation. Yeah, I don't know how much, maybe 100%. Yeah. And then use this knob here to spread them out.
On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
Yeah, the modulation goes now in both directions because the value here is bipolar. If we want it unipolar, so only pitch upwards, we simply have to switch it to unipolar.
On a distant planet. 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 On a distant planet.
On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
Sound quite interesting, but I mean, we can go further. We can use some randomization. Yeah, some of these devices need some tagging. But yeah, let's grab a probability device while we're already on it. And there's an entire random section, and from here, let's pick a dice device, which will generate a new random amplitude whenever it has an input here, which this random probabilities module provides at the moment every 8th note, and at the moment at a probability of 100%. So if we now apply this to the modulator or to the attenuator.
On a distant planet. 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 On a distant planet.
Yeah, not sure. Probably for a voice, for a vocal, that's not really useful. But there are many creative ways how you can influence the pitch. Now let's listen to some other signals. Yeah, first, this is how it sounds without any effect. Yeah, you can hear the range is quite extreme that we have in here. Now let's listen to the drum loop. Now here we can probably use an envelope follower or a follower RF to, I don't know, now let's just get an attenuator and modulation out. Let's apply this and see how this sounds. Obviously, this needs an audio input. yeah, the possibilities are quite extensive. Yeah, let's get a delay, just because granular stuff needs delay.
On a distant planet. On a distant
Yeah, the only thing left to do is now, of course, to add a new page and map the relevant parameters, like so.
On a distant planet. On a
Page on the controller.
On a distant planet. On a distant distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet. On a distant planet.
So yeah, I think with a little experimentation, you can get really interesting sounds out of this. And yeah, as I think mentioned in the beginning, well, since we are in the grid, we can take this as a basis. I mean, we can duplicate every device we have in here and create the most crazy device we can think of. I mean, we have certain downsides. For example, quantizing the pitch changes to a certain note will be really difficult in here. But yeah, you can always experiment and create copies of the all-pass device, work with different modulation amplitudes, and then create weird stuff. So yeah, wanted to do this video for a while. Took me a while to figure out how to build a granular device, a real-time granular device in the grid. Finally did. I hope you liked the video, and like, subscribe, and see you next time.